Welcome to the Up Podcast, raw real talk on everything young parenting.
From self-care, co-parenting, and family planning to balancing school, work, relationships, and goals.
Together, we're challenging society's assumptions and building a safe and supportive community for young parents.
One honest conversation at a time. So join us on the journey.
Hey guys, welcome back with another Yup podcast on all things young parenting, of course, with your Yup podcast hostess, myself, Divine.
And I'm Brandy.
Yeah, so today we have a special guest with us who I'll allow introduce themselves in a moment. And today we're going to be talking about parenting while healing, fears that impact parenting, and taking accountability for our children as we make mistakes as parents. So let's jump right in and let's introduce our special guest today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Divine and Brandy. My name is Nathalea Skye. I am a mother of 6 and I'm 26 years old.
Yes, welcome. So let's talk a little bit about trauma. We know as young parents, a lot of times we're growing up alongside our kids. And sometimes that means that we're also processing and healing from toxic relationships, from pregnancy and birth trauma, childhood trauma, and all of that stuff that we carry with us. And we're doing that while also trying to parent. Also, as young parents, we may not have even entered our healing process, or we may be in the thick of it while we're parenting. And so can we talk a little bit about trauma and just kind of how it shows up in parenting?
Yes, of course. It's an interesting topic. When I became a mom to my first child, I was just 14 years old. As you know, I was a child on my own as well. So it was like more of denial, I would call it, because you think that you have everything under control. You want to be the perfect mother figure, and you don't realize how much you need to learn at the same time while being a child on your own. And within that, I had to struggle a little bit to kind of lower it down and kind of let others teach me. I thought that I knew it all and I was the perfect mother because I was showing up or buying things for my child. But at the same time, I wasn't taking accountability of a lot of things that I was doing. Maybe, yeah, to survive, you have to do whatever you have to do that come into play. But that also it is a timing and a that you have to realize, wait, do I want for more? Do I deserve more in my life? Yes, I'm surviving and kind of being that parent. But within the time, I have realized, like, hey, being a drug dealer wasn't something that I wanted it to be. It was more about me surviving. But at that time, I wasn't looking at it like that. I was looking at it like, hey, this was bringing the money back home to my daughter and I could have supported her. But within that process, I realized that I could have gotten lost, and I did got lost because I did went through a lot of struggle by not allowing others teach me.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Nathalea. I think that like I said before, healing is a really interesting thing, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said you kind of you were a kid yourself, and so you were trying to figure it out. I think that asking for help is a huge part of that healing journey. And I just would love to kind of hear a little bit more about your story and just how you started your healing process while also parenting.
Well, that's that I feel like I'm still healing. Is a process that it never stop, right? Especially like if you have been through trauma and a lot of things. I've been through a lot, so my process started where um I was at my daughter meeting for school, and while I was sitting down and having the support of children's services like ACS, I realized that that was like the first time I had their support for something. But then after I finished that meeting, it kind of made me realize, like, hey, is it your trauma is getting in the way of a lot of these people abusing their power, like teachers, knowing that you had so many ACS cases, and then just you allowing that narrative to be played over and over of an irresponsible parent, more than taking over the whole narrative and show them, like, no, I'm not a responsible parent. I'm just a parent that is just surviving within the system and surviving of learning what is actually being a child while having another child. After that, like, yeah, I was in therapy and I was still drinking, honestly speaking, because I was doing it for everyone else, what it was therapy, what it was trying to be a responsible parent. And then I had to sit down and say, wait, I want to do this for me. I'm tired of doing everything to prove everybody wrong, what their perspective of who I am. After I did that, I started taking accountability and forgiveness of anybody that had hurt me. I didn't know at the process what was forgiveness until I text my real mom and I'm like, hey, I forgive you for anything that you did to me. And I think it took my mom like a whole month to respond to that. And I didn't care at the moment. I'm like, hey, you just text her. That's it. That's if she don't text back, that's on her. That's not on you. And after I did that, I realized I was giving more power to the people that hurt me at one point by being more stressed and having them see me for who I was. And after I realized that that's something that I was doing, I said, okay, so if I did this with my mother, then how many other people that I gave power of my own trauma to, and I wasn't aware of it. So sometimes you may care for certain things and you're like so passionate to change that narrative that people have you like looking as a crazy kid, but you actually are not crazy. You actually just expressing yourself. And I just learned how to express myself in a certain way and how to hold myself accountable that I wasn't the perfect mother that I thought I was all along. And after I started doing that, it came a process where I'm not holding myself accountable of some of the action I was doing to prove others. And I took that power back. And after I took that power back, it also built a relationship with my son where he was like, hey, mom, do you remember when you used to drink? That kind of was like a mind blowing for me because I said, what were you aware of this? Like, I didn't know that he was such aware of me drinking, right? Until I started that process and I said, oh, wait, hold up. My trauma was getting in the way of my parenting as well.
Yeah, I think it is so many great points there, especially with just like how traumas can, impact and affect everything and everyone around us, whether it be our interactions with our peers and family members and loved ones, or just affecting who we want to be as a person. Like you said, our parenting, that can come in the way of us being who we want to be as a representation to our kids. And I think that's such a great point because it takes that self accountability and awareness to even just notice those things. And that's such like a great big step in the right direction. And then you also mentioned something about how, it's a process that really never ends. We're always reminded by different triggers from the traumas that we've experienced and currently experience. Can you tell us a little bit about what those triggers look like and how you dealt with them?
Yes. One of my biggest pattern, and I would say it was good and bad at the same time, because while I was in it, it was more about putting a patch into an injury that I had. And I was hurt inside, and I kept on brushing up my inner child. And but I would drink to brush up that inner child. So every time I would drink, that inner child would come up and would start crying, would start things that I wouldn't do when I was sober. So I remember that after I drink, like on the next day, I'm waking up like nothing ever happened, and I'm over here cooking and cleaning, and then I have people where they will come up to me and tell me, "Hey, this is what you was doing," and I'm like, I don't want to hear that part of me. That's it. Like I don't want to hear it. But then I said to myself, "Hold up. What is it that you don't want to hear? Because let's face reality. You are her from others, what they did to you, and how are you going to face that?" And when I question myself within that, I realized I had a bad pattern, and my pattern was I wanted it to brush up my biological mom so much that I repeatedly met like three-person. I met two foster mother, and I like within less than a year, I was like, "Oh, hey, mom," and they became like a mom figure, but they weren't the the perfect mom figure that will be healthy for me. So, and then afterwards, I was feeling abandonment after they either did something that I said, okay, I gotta back off away from you. You're not a role model to me. And then all those emotions kept on popping up where I'm like abandonment, feeling sad, feeling betrayed and used. And it was the last person that I did this with. She had became like fully into this day. She is like a mom to me. And with her, I have learned that she didn't want me to replace my mom, but she was more wanting me to progress in life and show different and heal. And even if I would drink, she would sit down with me and have that talk of like, hey, your emotions are coming out. I'm not liking this. Or, hey, this relationship is actually not a good relationship for you. And I think that I won't be part of it. By the time I had to end up our relationship, because the lady did ended up leaving out of my life, um, I felt abandonment again. But I'm like, wait, hold up. This person was there for me. This person actually cared for me. Why am I feeling abandonment all over again if this person actually did care? This person, I learned so much from this person. We had a best relationship. So then I'm like, the reason why I'm feeling like this is because I want to be um more angry and more accepting that I'm so hurt and thinking about my own feeling without even imagining about how she feel about backing up away from me. And after I did that, after I realized that, I said, okay, now I have to really accept everything that my mom did to me and kind of accept that I can replace her with putting this woman to be my mother figure. After I did that, then I started accepting everyone for what they were doing in my life and letting them go without fighting them if it is for their best, but just keeping the good memories that I have with them.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that what's interesting is that you brought up something about your inner child and you started talking just about um, just the idea that, that person comes up sometimes and that then brings up triggers and that brings up the pain and the trauma. But while our inner childs are trying to be healed, we are also trying to heal and keep our real, like, outer children alive and healthy and happy. And I think that it really speaks to how we parent, right? If we had some concerns with our parents growing up, then we want to not be that way, right? We want to fix those things. Or if we feel a certain way, we never want our children to feel that way. And so, lately there's a lot of talk about like breaking generational curses, generational trauma, and just kind of how trauma gets carried on from one person to the next then generation, to their children, to their grandchildren, all of that. And I think that sometimes comes up a lot in parenting, where we're trying so hard to um, parent from a healed space so that we're not carrying those generational traumas down. But then sometimes maybe inadvertently we are. So you mentioned your son bringing up things and stuff like that. And so I just, really kind of want to talk about some of those cycles. Like, what are some things that you feel like have come up that have either played into fears that you've had as a parent, or ways that you've tried to kind of break cycles of generational trauma or generational curses or whatever it is to show up differently for your children than you were showed up for?
So, well, it's a lot of ways that now I take all my time to heal that in the child, and without taking away, because that's the thing, we think that our inner child just need that personal space, but within my situation, I try to cure my inner child with involving my family. So for example, like when I play with my children, I am giving my inner child um, that moment that she probably had to grow up and had to be an adult without playing with dolls and all of that stuff. So within playing with my children with dolls or running around, I do see the happiness that comes from my inner child at that moment. And even with I parent my inner child. I parent my inner child to identify what is safe environment. For example, just the other day, my son, he threw a toy and he looked it off to me and so angry. And we were playing, and I remember that one of the things, if I would have done that to my mother or anyone in my family, any adult, they would look at you as you disrespecting, and that's where the yelling come and go and go to your room and stuff like that to brush up what you just did, because they are an adult and you're supposed to have respect. In my situation with my son, I saw that I said something more is coming out that I'm not aware of. So then for me to be aware of, I said, hey, what happened? Why would you play like that with the toy? What's going on? And then I did tell him, like, hey, is something going on at school, or you were feeling some type of way about something? I'm here to talk. And then eventually it came out where my son told me, some of the kids, they be mean and they do this. And now I show my inner child that is no need for screaming. There's no need to, like, it's so simple to get to the bottom of a solution without that. And I think that at that moment, it kind of, my inner child was going to come out just acting like my mother or any adult in my family with the screaming, and I had to stop myself. Like, no, I'm not allowing, this is not normal. I'm going to show you what exactly it is, a safety environment that I could have a conversation. And when I did that, I felt good, but I also felt surprised how much I could have controlled that in the child and show that in the child, like, no, what you have learned is other ways, is other solution for the problem. Like another example, it will be with my my daughter. Her playing with baby dolls, and saying, this is my child and this is my baby. In my race, Hispanic, I would have been told that I'm trying to be an adult and become a mom. And that's not the case with my daughter. I had to accept, like, no, this is not the case. She doesn't want to grow up quick. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Teach her. So what I did was I grabbed the doll and started playing like it was my friend. Oh, hey, my friend, look at my friend. Let me feed my friend. After I started doing that, My daughter started calling her baby doll friend. So it's so many different ways that we have to continue more bringing back that childhood where our kid enjoy that childhood without us going into conclusion of like, no, they want to do this, they want to do that, because that's what the environment we were in kind of influence on us.
Yeah.
And I believe like the other thing, it will be where conversation could benefit you and your child. So you're not always going to hear, because you're an adult, whatever you want to hear and brush off your child. Oh no, you don't have feelings or emotion. And I started doing that where I'm like, listen, even if it hurt you at the moment, it's more better for you to be aware of how your kid is feeling and come with a solution to it than you just saying like, hey, you just hurt my feeling, you disrespecting me, and what are you talking about, you're just a child, you don't know what life is. But they do kind of know what life is, because they are 24/7 with you, and what they are learning with you, they either learning it with you or outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so deep and amazing that you have been able to like get to that point of just, not only being aware, but actually walking the walk. Like you're not just talking about it no more, like you're actually putting it into action with, kind of taking that pause instead of reacting. But I just want to talk about for a second how hard that is. Like, even
Yes.
just now live, like I told my daughter I'm going to be in a very important meeting. Don't come out here. And she came out here and put this piece of glass in my face. And so bad, I wanted to react. Like, just why? Like, why? Like, you're 8 going on 9 years old. Like, things should be clicking. But, it just takes you to that place, kind of like you said, like, it can be simpler than that. Like, is it that serious? She could have came in here doing a lot worse. So it's just like kind of just taking that breather and just realizing that, there's bigger battles and just like choosing your battles wisely, but also like getting down to the point. And like I remember speaking to Brandy about this recently when we talk about our children and situations and challenges, just reflecting on like why does that bother me so much? Like why was I ready to just react just by her, obviously her not doing what I asked, but like there must be more to it. Just like it is for our children, like there's more to it, for us mentally as well. And kind of just like getting to the bottom of that and just understanding why so that you're in a place to able to navigate that. Because I'm trying to get where you are, Nathalea, and it's a process, like you said, like
I'm
I'm definitely getting there. But
I'm gonna tell
every
you
day is
one
not
trick.
perfect.
I'm gonna tell you one trick that I could honestly tell any parent. Your kids, they know how to manipulate. Like if you don't catch that right away and play with their head the same way as they playing with you, or you're gonna end up crazy. Like my kids, like one thing I told like my son, my smallest son, he's 3. With the dad, he's like TV, 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 TV. But when he's here with me alone, he say TV, mommy, TV, mommy. So what I did is tell him, no, there's no TV. Do you understand that there is no TV right now? Do you understand? When I continue repeating that to him until he say okay, he's like, listen, you're gonna drive me crazy. Just okay, all right, no TV. All right. So just know how to play that mentally game, because as soon as your kids see what bother you, they'll come and do it. And I see it over and over with all my children. They all do the same thing. And I'm like, listen, if every second of the day I'm gonna get upset, I'm gonna get them upset. And they're gonna see how it feel. And then now they don't do it to you.
I think
Go
that
ahead.
that is a huge point, Nathalea. It's so funny. And I think even kind of going back to what you were talking about, Divine, earlier too, is that you're right. Like sometimes you do have to take a second to just be like, why am I so frazzled? Why am I so, is it just because I want them to
Yeah.
do what I asked them to do because I said so, because that's how we were raised, like you say so, stay in a children's place, all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? But realistically, we're raising kids in a different generation where they ask everything, and we want them to question everything. We don't want them to just be passively like living life and making sure everybody is, you know, dictating their every move. Like we want them to be strong, independent people who are able to advocate for themselves. But I think that sometimes, like you were saying earlier, Nathalea, like sometimes we parent from a place of our own fear. Like, I mean, I felt triggered by some of these things too. I'm like, ooh, ooh, my daughter does the same thing, like, ooh, ooh, you know, and then I get overstimulated and then I lose my mind and then I start yelling and then I have to go take a second and be like, wait, why am I upset? And sometimes it boils down to fear, right? Like sometimes it's like, I don't want whatever it is that she did, I don't want her to be labeled as a bad person when she's an adult. I don't want her to, and I'm not realizing that she's absolutely behaving developmentally appropriate. Like her behavior is absolutely appropriate for her age, for her development, for her maturity. It doesn't mean that she's going to go and be some like labeled person. And even if she was, like that's okay, right? And so it's really interesting to like one, see how we can get so overstimulated, but then when we can take a second to just be like, why am I so upset? Why? How can I handle this differently? I loved your tips, Nathalea, about like playing their own game with them. You know, it reminds me of like when you were when you have a baby and they cry and you're like too with them. So it kind of shows them their own game, and I think
Yes. I,
yeah,
I start doing everything that I know that bother me that they does. I do it to them, and trust me, it seems ridiculous because they expect me to be upset, but when I do it, they're looking at me like, no, 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 no. Now you getting to me, mom. Just stop it already. You know how much you're annoying me. What you do to me?
yeah,
Now, before you got into that place with your children where you're able to kind of make a joke out of it and not take things like seriously, personally to the heart, because I think that's where a lot of the triggers and frustrations come from. So, when you kind of were in that place of transitioning through your healing process and you kind of, you were doing the yelling, you were doing everything that you didn't necessarily want to do, how are some ways that you took accountability for your children when you made a mistake while parenting them?
Well, honestly speaking, one of my biggest stuff that bring me down and I had to accept was I'm not going to have control over
Mm.
everything. For example, I put camera all over my house. And I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be watching every move they do. But then after I started seeing that they were going to school and I wasn't having control over everything and I was just being ignorant to thinking that I had control, I said to myself, this is not the right way because now you're overwhelming yourself for something that um is not true. Like you don't have control over everything, and even with protecting them, I was like, hey, I want to be there. I used to jump every time that they wanted me to go to the school, and they were either going through something with another kid. I'm like, okay, I'm packing up, I'm out, I'm going to the school, we're gonna talk. But then I realized that even for the smallest thing, they wanted me to jump, and I said, what are you talking about? Like, this is little kid stuff. What are you talking about? I'm not gonna go and sit down in the office for hours. Like, how about if I would have had a job? How about if I don't have the time for all of this stuff? I can't always jump. So I had to realize that they had to advocate for themselves, and I wasn't allowing that because I wanted it to be controlled. And I also had to realize that are going to be sad stories that I'm going to hear from my kids, and that's okay. It's more about that support that you're going to give them after that situation they are in with outside your home. And that was like one of my biggest challenge that I had to put, but it was a lot of emotion in place. Sometimes I would even, like, I would say to my son, I'm talking in the phone. Can you please give me a second? I'm talking in the phone. You wasn't saying anything before I got in the phone. Why are you now wanting to talk? And I used to look at him like, can I talk? Can I talk? I'm in the phone. And I used to go like this. Like, and then after, I might be crazy for telling him to go, but I do look crazy because I'm just over here, like, without talking in the phone still, but just pointing the finger, like, go. And then he just there, like nothing. So after that, I said, you know what? Um, let me see in what way I'm going to use the phone. And I had to explain to them, would you like me to interrupt you when you become a teenager while you in the phone? Would you like me to do this to you? Because we have to accept reality. You are going to need privacy. So if you're going to need privacy, and I have to accept that by the time that you get to that age, so then let's start doing that with you respecting me first. For I could as well learn how to respect you, right? So it's more about them learning in the same process before they that age come. Like, hey, if I want my mom later on to give me some privacy, I will have to give her as well some privacy. I will have to let her talk in the phone if I don't want her to be over here with the caldero knocking on the stove and doing a bunch of noise. And I say that to them, like, you don't want me to do that later on when it's your time, so then don't do it. And I think that they are more into understanding. It's more about explaining because they are going to get to that age.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think also like learning to say sorry, right? Like I think we can probably
Mm,
all count on one hand how many times an adult in our lives told us sorry, probably on one fingertip, right? But I think you're right. Like I think explaining to them, I know that I realized right around COVID, when we were home, I was home with my daughter and she asked a lot of questions. And I started not having answers to like why do I need you to do this or why do I need you to do that, right? But also I started realizing that I have never been vulnerable with her. I've never shown her real emotions. I just kind of hide everything because that's what for me a single mom does, right? You just shelter your kids, you stay, in this like unhealed box. But I think you're right, Nathalea, like explaining things to them, explaining why you said a certain thing. Why is it rude for you to interrupt while I'm on the phone? Why am I upset that you just came in and brought this glass thing while I'm trying to concentrate and, record a podcast, right? Like, why am I upset that you are now throwing a tantrum? Why does that trigger me? And I think communicating to them why, taking a deep breath, and then coming back and saying sorry. Like, sorry, I should not have yelled and screamed. That was my inner child getting
yeah,
riled
I'm
up.
not, most of the time, like, when I used to yell at my children, I try to go back after I'm calm. I try to go back, and I'm like, you know what? I'm holding myself accountable of me yelling. That wasn't the right way. But then I also explain, like, listen, I'm telling you 100 times something, and you're not listening, and this is what it did to me. So even though I'm holding myself accountable and I'm apologizing, I'm also explaining to you what not to do for the next time,
Yeah.
because like that you will know how I felt at the same time. Because sometimes we try to brush off by a sorry, right? But at the same time, they have to know what they did that was wrong and how
Yeah.
you felt. But at the same time, I'm gonna apologize to you. I'm gonna be the bigger adult that I hold myself accountable. But I'm gonna also hold you accountable as a child as well, to understand how I felt, how this made me feel. Because I'm a human being. Like most of the time I had to tell my kid, do I look like a robot to you? Like I'm a human being. Like, do you know how I feel?
Yes.
Oh
And
my God.
question, even with the question, when kids come and ask you for a question, always remind them some of your questions, you're not in the appropriate age yet. But I will always come back to those questions. Do you want me to write it? Maybe at your age, at the appropriate age, we could go back to this question book where I will have answer for you.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, best believe I'm already sitting here like tapping my finger, planning the conversation I'm going to have with my daughter. So I am taking in all of these gems for when I walk in that room with a clear mind. I'm going to communicate. I'm going to
Yeah.
take a breath, make sure like I'm in the right mind, and I'm going to, explain why I would have reacted if I wasn't on this professional call and why it's not okay.
Thank you so much, Nathalea. Thank you for your gems. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for kind of being vulnerable and talking through trauma and healing and all of the things. We really appreciate you. We appreciate all the work that you do for YEP. Y'all, if you ever need a story about anything, about parenting multiple children, about even about like gaining citizenship, she talks about so much on the website. And so check her out on Yup. And I also just want to end with saying that we know that this is hard, right? Everybody's going through something. Everybody is going
Yes.
through something, whether it's small, whether it's big, whether it's in parenting, whether it's in life. And so take care of yourself, right? If you need to seek support from a professional like a therapist or a doctor or anything like that. Also, the Yup community serves as a layer of support as well. So check out all of our content. You can also, join the discussion forums and ask questions. We want to be a community for you, and we want to be support for you because we know that just like we all have stories to tell, you all have stories to tell. So we want to thank you for listening. We want to thank you for tuning in yet again. And just know that we are all in this parenting journey together, and we got this. We got this.
You got this.
Yes, we do. We all do.
If you enjoyed the Up podcast, please subscribe, share, and leave a comment.
And visit youngunitedparents.org for the information, community, and resources young moms and dads need to thrive.